What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to the Cutlass Board Games channel, and welcome back to the From Computer to Cardboard series. This has been a really tough adventure for me. In the first season, we made it Against the Storm board game adaptation. It was really big, and I was like, you know what, I'm not going to do that again. I'm going to try and manage my scope a bit better, and I have just not. From last week's video until now, has been about 5 weeks. I do everything like way in advance. At the time of recording, the Outer Wilds video series hasn't even been announced yet. That's to give you an idea of how far apart these things are. But it's taken me 5 weeks from last video where I showed off the mind map to get to here, and I'm at the 60% complete mark. And I kind of want to talk about why this project's been really hard. Outer Wilds in general is a very complicated game, design-wise. There's a lot going on, and it's also possibly the greatest video game of all time. So there's part of me that's like, well, I don't want it to make a shit game. I want it to be just okay, at least. And so there's like a little bit of pressure there for it to be good. Whether or not that's been a big factor in my current problem, we'll see. But the mind map actually proved to be my demise a little bit, because the way that I was designing the game, I was doing two major sections. I have a Google Doc that's got all the locations listed, and I kind of like a rough order of how things happen. And then I moved to the mind map, and I copied all the things from the Google Doc into the mind map and placed them all exactly how they're supposed to be laid out, and what happens next, and keys and locks connected and aligned so I can see where everything is and kind of the order you resolve stuff in. And that works really good. And then I started to do stuff that was on the mind map and not on the Google Doc. I had a really inspired day. I spent 3 or 4 hours going through adding all this cool stuff, and it wasn't saved. All of that progress was lost. And I don't know what the fuck happened. It really sucked, basically. I loaded it up a few times afterwards, and because of the mind map, I'm usually so zoomed in working in one section that it actually took me a while to realize that whole things were missing. I'm like, hang on a minute, didn't I do a whole bunch of stuff at this location? Why is that not there? Why is this character just completely not present anymore and stuff like that? And so I was like, well, I don't even have any way to get it all back. I was using a free trial version. And it's just all gone. I was pretty meticulous about saving it. I even downloaded a PDF backup, but that was before that day, unfortunately. So all that progress was lost. And so every time I went to try and work on stuff, I could only work on stuff that was really known space, because it was just really hard to work on stuff, and I don't know what the connections are. I don't, the order of stuff that I already designed, and I kept bumping up against this empty space, trying to figure out what the hell it was that I had done in that session. What was the narrative piece? What was the kind of stuff? And I have some saving graces. I wrote down some notes in the Google Doc, which was each character's greater arc, so where they are at the start and where they end up, because I now use that to redesign the spots between them to go, oh, okay, this character, this was their ultimate goal, this is where they end up, this is how I'm going to try and facilitate that. And that kind of started to help me get it back together a little bit. But instead I moved away from the mind map onto this, what you can now see on the screen. Now this is kind of a visual representation of what the game looks like currently, because what happens is you start off in Timberhearth, as all good Outer Wild games do. You get the planet card. It will have a standee, so you're standing up, and then you'll have a deck of cards, which is what this this little long line of things here is all the cards that would go in that deck. So as you're playing the game, you're flipping the top card, and either character dialogue is delivered to you, or instructions, or you pick up cards that let you do stuff. We have one over, it's about here, which is a card that lets you move a character to another location. And so one of the locks, which you can see have the red border, will be I need this person to be in this place because they are going to talk to you and tell you about something important that has to do with this place. And so part of the puzzle is getting the right character to the right location. and how that is slowly unlocked is by the movement cards, but also like how what order you've unlocked the locations in and stuff like that, and what that person knows to be in the right place to tell you the thing that they know. Like for example, Gabbro is going to know different stuff from Ryback, so if Gabbro's in a place with things that Gabbro would know about, he'll tell you about them, basically, is what the idea is. I'm trying to keep it as spoiler light as possible, because the idea is to get to the end of this series, you see the game being made, and then not really know what's supposed to happen story-wise in like the actual gameplay. So when we do, I'm thinking we do 2 different videos. The first one is I'm going to be playing with a playtester, and it'll just be playtester feedback, where we just have the B-roll on the screen, which is the whole playthrough, and then we just kind of talk about what went well, what went wrong, and then the final episode will be the full playthrough of like everything that happened, reading out all the dialogue and all that kind of stuff. So I don't want to spoil it too much, but this is kind of the 60% mark. There's 117 cards made currently, which is why it's taking a long time. Against the Storm differently, only had like maybe 60 unique cards. I could probably check, but like 60 unique cards, let's say. And then upon printing it all out, a lot of stuff needed 2, 3, 4 copies, and that's where the bloat ended up. With this, every card is unique. Every card requires to be designed, and some of them are pretty simple, but it takes time. Unfortunately, it takes a lot of time. And let me just kind of give you a gameplay rundown. You start off in Timber Hearth. You'll get to talk to Hornfels, who in the base game is kind of your introductory NPC guy. He's the person that you must talk to in order to leave Timber Hearth, basically. And he kind of sets the stage for what it is that you're kind of doing. You're like, oh, go explore. Here's some ideas on places to explore. You can't actually see. Let me fix that real quick. I do this all the time. I need to turn off my green screen so you can see. The green cards are keys and the red cards are locks. So you actually see up here, these first 2 keys unlock a location for you. So the first 2 locations that you'll be unlocking is Brittle Hollow and Dark Bramble, which you can see along the top. They're kind of ordered in what order you would discover them in most commonly. There is some way to do it in a different order, but it requires you to skip content and go to other places. This is just assuming that you are going left to right and like reading everything as far as you can until you hit a lock, which is not essential. You can go, oh, I've unlocked 2 locations. I could instead go to Dark Bramble and ignore Brittle Hollow and so on. But this is just kind of assumed that you're going from left to right, which I think would be the most commonly done for a first-time playthrough. And so that's just the easiest notes for me to take. Then we have these locks. So the locks are going to be either you've had to have learned a secret, and some of the keys, like for example this one, is the key to a particular secret. So it will be like secret of this thing required, and then when you learn that thing, it'll go secret of this thing learned, and you go, oh, okay, so I can use that card now to get rid of the other one, and then I keep going through that deck. But as you can see in multiple locations, there's multiple locks in place, some of which you can only, like you'll go there and you'll remove the lock and you'll find another lock and you're like, oh, I haven't done that thing yet, I'll have to go and find that, which kind of makes sense. And then let's have a look what other stuff we've got, because some of the locks are just like secrets, like some of the regular mechanical stuff that you will uncover through playing Outer Wilds, like the kind of regular puzzles, but also kind of some major plot beats that might not be obvious as well is kind of in there. And you're kind of progressing along. You get to the first third of the game, maybe, is just kind of unlocking new locations. We do Brittle Hollow, Dark Bramble, Ember Twin, and Giant's Deep. And then after that, it starts to be a bit more plot heavy. You start to get some more keys. Ghost Matter starts showing up, and Ghost Matter is, of maybe the 4 puzzles, Ghost Matter is one of them. Each location has a certain amount of space allocated to it. And then the ship takes up 1 spot, which is just wherever you are. Each NPC takes up 1 spot. and ghost matter will take up space. So your goal is to try and move people around, but also ghost matter might make that hard, that might block them, but you also have to be there as well. So you need 2 open spaces to like move people around. And you can only move to adjacent locations. So with the ship, you just go, okay, I'm going to go from Timber Hearth to Brittle Hollow, and then to Dark Bramble. You don't have to interact with Brittle Hollow, you can just move past it. But for the NPCs to move, they need to have a card that specifically says that they can go to that location, which is adjacent to it. So if I have Hornfells who does not move, by the way, but if I have Hornfells to the Interloper, and he's not next to the Interloper, then I'm going to need to find all the other cards that will allow him to move along the chain to get there. And so it's kind of this visual puzzle thing of trying to get people into the right location, which I think works pretty fine. It's not too complicated, right? But it's just kind of enough to be reorganizing stuff. And so moving people to the right place. And this is a little bit of a spoiler, but like one of the other major things is that all the planets are in the wrong place, and you have to reorganize all of the planets upon given a device. And like that's the second major puzzle. And then the last one is the ghost matter. Ghost matter is kind of like the last thing that you have to do. You spend the beginning avoiding it, and then you have to try and figure out how to deal with it. And that might kind of give you an idea of what the kind of story beats are. There is one new character that I've made up to fit in with what's going on. Everyone else is the people that you know and love from Outer Wilds. They get to show up, do stuff, teach you things that they would, or they or their planet would teach you in the game, and help you kind of both solve the regular puzzles of the game as well as the puzzles of this board game, which I think is cool. So if you're like a big fan of the video game and you come along and you play the board game, you go, oh, okay, cool. I know Rybeck, I know what, they know what they would tell me, what their kind of personality is like. And then what they then communicate to you is about what you would find at Brittle Hollow or whatever, for example, which I think works pretty well. And so basically from this point, I have to design a lot more cards. You can kind of see the Timber Hearth is pretty long. There's quite a lot here. I think most of them are going to get to be that long. Some of them might be a bit smaller, but for the most part, there's going to be maybe 20, 30 cards to a deck. Most of which is going to be dialogue across the whole. And then like there's going to be several locks and keys, which kind of controls your navigation across things. But then the other 2 card types is Ghost Matter shows up in this location, and you get to pick between 2 places to put it. So you might get a card that says put Ghost Matter on Timber Hearth, and you're like, or Dark Bramble, and you're like, well, I don't need to go to Timber Hearth anytime soon. I'll go ahead and put it there. And you get to kind of choose where it's going to be. So you're like, well, I think I finished everything here. The deck there's empty. I'm going to put all the Ghost Matter in that location. But what might happen is if you put 3 Ghost Matter into a location, you cannot move through it anymore. So you might get stuck having to put it somewhere else. And then I think that's kind of the failure state if you are no longer able to progress. I'm still working on that. I'm currently working on how you win the game. I haven't thought too much about how you lose the game. The Ghost Matter is supposed to just kind of be an obstacle that you have to be mindful of. And then we'll get something that lets you kind of move it around later and solve that problem for you. But you have to kind of get to that point without being locked out of the game first, which is, again, something I'm mindful of. And also, some gates that require a person to be there means that you need to have the ability to collect all of the cards that will help you move that person to that actual location. They have to be available to you. And so I have to be mindful of that as well. Some characters move a lot, like Feldspar, for example, moves a lot. There's a lot of different locations that require him. But other characters, like Rybeck, don't move as much. Or like characters like, hey, this is the place that I started. Here's everything I know about this place. And then there's another location that they have like meaningful commentary at and would be better if they were there. And then like that's kind of, they just go to one place, which is kind of straightforward. But that's kind of where I'm at the moment. I've got a whole bunch of stuff to fill in. You can see I've just kind of done what the first scene is for most of these locations. Like the first 5 is basically like what happens until you get to the first lock. And some of them, I then go, okay, well, this thing then has the key. They come back and do that, so it won't be like too far into the game. And then we go, okay, what happens next? Which is not so complicated. I really don't. I'm just like, I have all of these cool story ideas bursting inside me that I want to tell you, but I want you to see it. I want you to see it in the game being played, because I think that's where it's going to shine the most. Obviously, that's what it was designed for. But I'm excited about it. I have been really enjoying working on it, but it has also been very difficult. This is a style of game that I've never worked on before. I've never seen anything really like this before. It's designed kind of like an escape room in a box, where instead of like, oh, look over there on the bunk bed, here's the piece of information you need, or play with the buttons on that television. Here is the pieces of information, and it's very clear that the only knowledge I have of an escape room is from that one Brooklyn Nine-Nine episode. But it's a lot more modular. There's places, there's story being delivered to you, there's locks and there's keys. It's kind of more escape roomy, and that kind of feels a little bit like how Outer Wilds works. You'll show up to a place, you go, I can't seem to figure out how to progress here, and then something later on, something somewhere else will teach you a thing. And teach you, well, this is how this works, or this is how physics works, and you go, oh, and then you go and solve that puzzle. You go and figure it out. And so this is kind of the same thing. You go somewhere, you learn a secret, you go, oh, okay, or you learn more about a character, and you go, oh, and then I can take that character to this place, and they'll teach me something, and oh, and then this is what the greatest story implications are, and stuff like that. Because this is trying to be a story that runs alongside the Outer Wilds video game. The events are different, but some of the like locations and things in it are the same. So some puzzles you go, oh, that makes sense. This is how this is supposed to work. But eventually it gets to a point where it's no longer base game stuff and it's all board game stuff. You're like, oh, this new character's telling me stuff, or this new thing has happened, and I need to figure out why it's changed and why it's wrong from how I remember, which is kind of what I was going for. But that's just kind of me giving an update. I've picked this new design system. It's working really well. It helps me see the layout of where all of the cards are, and I can go and reference them and check them like wherever I need, which is not as good as the mind map, because with the mind map I have arrows and stuff everywhere. It's like, okay, here's this lock which is connected to this key or whatever, and I always know where everything is. Instead, there's a little bit of browsing time, but it's not such a big deal. The other advantage is it's like really easy for me to scroll things up and down if I need to insert new things above other stuff, so that I can kind of go, oh no, wait, I need to add a movement card here, or we're going to spawn some ghost matter here, and then I kind of, adjust the railings a little bit, and it seems to work just fine. And I'm pretty happy with how it's going, so I'm excited to finally print it out. There's one other thing that I have done that I haven't done ever before for any other game, which is I've designed a box that's going to be printed out to store all the different cards in. So Timber Hearth is going to be one box. It's got Timber Hearth on the front, and when you open it up, you just could pull out the deck, and that's got the Timber Hearth deck in it. And then like, okay, here's the Timber Hearth card, which is, you put a standee on it. You go, cool, here's Timber Hearth. And that's how you're going to discover each of the locations. You won't know that it exists until you get reveal this location. I'll get that box, which is obviously, if you're playing in a retail environment, you know all the boxes exist. But I'm going to be running the play test, and I have a specific big Outer Wilds fan in mind who you may have seen on the channel before, but no spoilers. I'm just basically going to be handing them the stuff as they need it to try and keep it as much of a surprise as possible, which I think will be interesting. And also, they're a big critic, so if the game sucks, they're going to say so. And I'm hoping they don't. I hope the game is good. But we don't know until we get there. We don't know until I finish it, and we don't know until I get it onto the table and play it. So if you're as excited as me to see how this comes around, because this has been kind of a monumental task, and I'm really hoping that it does go well, stick around. Hit that subscribe button. It's the best way to see all the different wacky, weird content coming out of this channel. And there's going to be a playlist. In fact, I'll put it up on the screen right now. There's going to be a playlist where you can go and look at all of the From Computer to Cardboard episodes. So if you missed the beginning of the Outer Wilds stuff, you can go back and see the whole series. If those episodes where the game is being played is up already, you can go and find it and watch it right now. And then, as always, the subscribe button. because that's the best way to help me continue doing this stuff, because my goal is 1,000, get the channel monetized. It's really hard, and I appreciate all the help from all you cool Outer Wilds fans out there to try and help me get there.